The mansion stood on a hill, grand and imposing, a fortress of wealth surrounded by green lawns that stretched as far as the eye could see. From the outside, it looked like a place where dreams could come true, where luxury and comfort were endless, but inside it was quiet, often too quiet. The walls, lined with expensive paintings and antique furniture, seemed to absorb the sounds of life rather than celebrate them. It was a home filled with things, but strangely lacking the warmth that should have come from family. The billionaire lived there with his young son, a boy with delicate features and bright, observant eyes. The boy was different from other children. He saw the world in his own unique way. Sometimes he would laugh in moments no one expected and remain silent in moments everyone thought should bring joy. He loved routines and familiar patterns, and loud noises or sudden changes could make him anxious. His father loved him, of course, but often from a distance, wrapped in the busy world of meetings, investments, and endless responsibilities. The boy's needs were complicated, and the father sometimes felt helpless, unsure how to connect. The household had many staff members, drivers, cooks, housekeepers, but most kept to their duties without forming deeper bonds with the family. Everything in the mansion ran like a well-oiled machine, precise and efficient, yet something essential was missing. The boy's laughter was rare and precious, and often it went unnoticed amid the hum of work and schedules. Among the staff, there was one person who saw the boy differently. She was a black maid, quiet yet strong, with a presence that brought calm wherever she went. Her eyes were gentle, always attentive, noticing the smallest gestures or changes in mood. Unlike others who approached the boy with tasks or instructions, she approached him with understanding. She knew that he communicated in ways that were not always spoken, in movements, in looks, in small sounds that others might overlook. The father often noticed her presence, though he rarely intervened. He saw her bending down to adjust a toy just the way the boy liked it, or sitting beside him while he arranged blocks in perfect lines. At first, he didn't think much of it. He had always believed that care could be delegated. That love, in its truest form, was something that happened naturally within the family. But watching her, he began to realize that there was something remarkable about the way she connected with his son. It was not just patience. It was empathy, understanding, and a deep kindness that seemed to bridge a gap he had never crossed. One morning, the boy woke up unusually quiet. His father had an important meeting scheduled, but he lingered a little longer in the doorway watching. The boy was sitting on the floor in his room, rocking slightly back and forth, his favorite blanket clutched tightly. The maid was beside him, her hand resting gently on his back. She spoke softly, her voice a soothing melody that seemed to reach him where words could not. The father had seen her do this countless times, but today was different. He felt a pang in his chest, an unfamiliar stirring of emotion. He stepped closer, careful not to startle either of them. The boy looked up, his eyes wide but not afraid. The maid smiled, a small knowing smile, and encouraged him to play with a set of blocks. Slowly the boy's body relaxed, his rocking slowed, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. The father's heart tightened, realizing how much he had missed. These small moments were not grand gestures or displays of affection. They were the lifeblood of connection, and he had been absent from them. The mansion felt different that day. The sun poured through the large windows, casting light on the polished floors and luxurious furniture, but for the first time it seemed to illuminate something deeper, the fragile, delicate world of his son's emotions. The father realized that no amount of money or luxury could replace the care, attention, and understanding that truly mattered. He felt both awe and regret, admiration for the maid's patience and a quiet guilt for his own distance. Throughout the day, he watched her interact with his son. She guided him gently through small tasks, celebrated little achievements with quiet praise, and offered comfort without expecting thanks or recognition. She understood that love was not measured in grand gestures but in consistency and presence. And the boy responded to her in ways that no one else could provoke. There was laughter, curiosity, and even moments of connection that touched the father deeply. As he moved through the rooms, attending to his work yet stealing glances at them, the father began to notice something else. The maid's actions were not just about care. They were a bridge. She was teaching him silently, showing how to reach his son's world, how to communicate in ways that mattered. He felt a shift within himself, a stirring of emotions that had long been dormant. It was both unsettling and beautiful to witness. The evening brought its own quiet challenges. The boy became overwhelmed, as he often did when routines shifted or new experiences intruded. He flailed, his voice rising in distress. The maid moved immediately, wrapping him in a soft embrace, speaking in calm tones and slowly guiding him back to a state of calm. The father watched, barely breathing, feeling an ache in his chest. He realized that these moments were what parenting truly was. Not grand gifts or impressive gestures, but presence, empathy, and the courage to step into the world of another human being, however challenging it might be. Dinner was served quietly in the dining room. The boy ate slowly, carefully, his father sitting nearby, unsure of what to say or do. The maid's presence remained subtle but powerful, offering support and reassurance. For the first time, the father felt that he was not just an observer but a participant in his son's world. It was a fragile beginning, tentative yet profound. Later that night, as the mansion grew silent and the stars shone over the sprawling estate, the father lingered in his study. He thought about the maid, about his son, about the gaps in his own heart. He understood, with sudden clarity, that wealth could not purchase understanding, that power could not replace patience, and that status could not substitute for love. He felt a deep gratitude for the maid, a humble recognition that she had been quietly teaching him the most important lessons of life. He walked to his son's room, where the boy was already asleep, peaceful in a way that only came from feeling safe and understood. The father knelt by the bed, watching the rise and fall of the chest, and whispered a quiet promise to himself. He would try, truly try, to be present, to connect, to learn. He would honor the trust that the maid had placed in him by allowing him to witness the love she offered so freely. That night, the mansion was filled with a quiet warmth that had been missing for years. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A seed had been planted in the father's heart, one that promised growth, connection, and understanding. The journey would not be easy, but for the first time he saw the possibility of true family life, where love and empathy were the true treasures. In the days that followed, the father noticed more. He began to see the small victories, the fleeting moments of joy, and the simple ways his son communicated happiness. He began to listen more, to observe, to participate rather than command. The maid continued her quiet guidance, never intrusive, always supportive. And the boy responded, slowly opening up in ways that brought both joy and tears to the father's eyes. The mansion, with all its grandeur, had begun to feel like a home. Not because of the wealth that filled its rooms, but because of the human connections that had been nurtured, often in silence, in patience, and in gentle acts of love. The father understood finally that the most valuable things could not be bought. They had to be lived, felt, and shared. And for the first time he felt that he was truly beginning to live that lesson. It was in these quiet moments, in the soft light of morning and the calm of night, that the father realized the profound impact one person's compassion could have. The maid had touched not only his son's life but his own, opening his heart in ways he had never imagined. And in that realization, a new chapter of their lives began. A chapter filled with hope, understanding, and the gentle beginnings of love that was finally allowed to grow. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, casting soft golden light across the polished floors. The mansion felt alive in a quiet way, the gentle sounds of the household beginning to stir. The boy was awake, moving carefully across the room, his small hands brushing against the edges of his toys and furniture. He liked things to be in order, and any disruption could unsettle him, so his movements were deliberate, precise, almost ritualistic. The maid had already begun her day, tending to the quiet rhythms of the household while keeping an eye on him. Her presence was calm and steady, like a protective shadow, and the boy responded to it with a rare ease. She noticed immediately when he hesitated before approaching the small table where his blocks were arranged. Without a word, she stepped close, her hands gentle as she nudged a piece slightly to align with the pattern he liked. He looked up, his eyes brightening, and offered a small smile, a gesture so fleeting that it could have been missed by anyone less attentive. She knelt beside him, speaking softly, her voice a soothing hum that seemed to make the room warmer. She didn't rush him, didn't demand a response, but her presence alone was comforting, an invisible hand guiding him without pressure. The father watched from a distance, standing in the doorway with a coffee cup in hand. He had been busy in his own world, attending to calls and emails, managing projects, and making decisions that affected thousands of lives. Yet here, in this quiet morning moment, he felt his chest tighten in a way that surprised him. He realized he had been missing so much: the small victories, the subtle signs of joy, the moments that mattered more than any business deal. The maid had been showing him a world he had never fully understood, a world defined by patience, attention, and empathy. Today, the boy's mood was different. He seemed restless, his hands fidgeting, his gaze darting around the room. The maid noticed immediately, her experienced eyes catching the earliest signs of agitation. She knelt beside him, maintaining a soft, calm tone, offering reassurance without overwhelming him. She did not ask him to explain his feelings. She simply mirrored calmness, creating a safe space where he could regulate his emotions at his own pace. The father could see the effect almost instantly. The boy's shoulders relaxed, his breathing steadied, and his hands stopped fidgeting. A small smile appeared again, this one more sustained, more genuine. As the day progressed, the interactions between the boy and the maid became a quiet dance of understanding. She guided him through tasks, celebrated small successes, and comforted him during moments of stress. She had a way of reading his expressions, understanding the subtle cues that often went unnoticed by others. The father observed this, feeling a mix of awe and humility. He realized that connection required presence, attentiveness, and a willingness to meet someone where they were, rather than expecting them to meet you halfway. At lunchtime, the boy was reluctant to eat. He pushed the plate away slightly, his hands hovering over the food, unsure. The maid moved closer, not in a commanding way, but in a way that invited him to participate. She encouraged him gently, offering small bites and speaking softly, sharing a light moment that eased his tension. He accepted her guidance, eating slowly but steadily, his trust in her evident. The father, seated nearby, felt a pang of emotion. He recognized that these simple acts, feeding, comforting, guiding, were the building blocks of trust and love, and he had been absent from them for too long. In the afternoon, the father found himself drawn into the boy's world more than he had expected. The maid had been showing him how to engage, how to communicate in ways that were meaningful to his son. She encouraged him to participate in play, showing him how to sit beside the boy, how to mirror his movements, and how to celebrate even the smallest achievements. The boy responded with subtle signs of recognition, a glance here, a soft laugh there, moments that felt monumental to the father. There was a particular moment that stayed with him. The boy had built a tower of blocks, tall and fragile, and it wobbled precariously. The maid's hand hovered near it, ready to steady it if needed, but she allowed the boy to adjust it himself, encouraging independence while offering silent support. The father watched, holding his breath, and when the tower remained standing, the boy clapped softly, a sound full of pride and accomplishment. The father felt a tear prick at the corner of his eye, a mix of joy, relief, and a growing awareness of how much he had missed. As the day moved toward evening, the boy became restless again. It had been a long day filled with new experiences and stimuli, and he struggled to process everything. The maid noticed immediately, her calm presence offering a safe anchor. She guided him to a quiet corner, speaking softly, touching his shoulder in reassurance and using gentle gestures to communicate. The father followed her example, hesitant at first but gradually finding his own rhythm. He placed a hand on his son's back, mirroring the maid's actions, and the boy responded with a soft sigh of relief, leaning slightly into his father's touch. It was a small victory but monumental in the father's heart. That evening, the father reflected on what he had witnessed. The maid's approach was not about teaching or instructing in a formal sense. It was about presence, understanding, and empathy. She had shown him how to connect, how to read subtle cues, and how to respond in ways that mattered. He realized that love was not always loud or demonstrative. Sometimes it was quiet, patient, and steady, the kind that built trust and security over time. Dinner was served, and the boy ate with a newfound sense of calm. The father joined them, engaging in light conversation and observing how the maid continued to support him and his son. Her role was no longer invisible. It was central, a bridge between the father and his son. He understood that without her, he might still be struggling to find the connection that now felt possible. Later that night, as the boy slept peacefully, the father sat alone in his study thinking about the day. He reflected on the lessons he had observed, the importance of patience, the power of empathy, and the subtle ways human connection could transform a life. The maid had not only cared for his son, but had opened his eyes to what it meant to be present, to engage fully, and to love without expectation. He felt a deep gratitude, a quiet reverence for her role in their lives. The mansion, grand and imposing, had begun to feel more like a home. It was not the luxury or the wealth that made it so, but the presence of care, attention, and understanding. The father realized that he had been living in a world of material abundance but emotional scarcity, and that now, finally, there was a possibility of change. He felt a quiet determination to continue learning, to continue engaging, and to ensure that his son felt seen, understood, and loved. In the days that followed, the father began to notice more small details. The way his son's eyes lit up at simple gestures, the joy in completing a task, the comfort found in the maid's presence. He started to participate more actively, gradually learning the rhythms of connection that the maid had been demonstrating. Every small step felt monumental, and he treasured each moment, knowing that these were the moments that truly mattered in life. He also began to appreciate the maid in new ways. She was not just an employee, she was a guide, a teacher, and a quiet hero who had bridged the gap between father and son. Her patience, empathy, and insight had transformed their daily lives, creating a space where love could grow naturally. The father understood that true wealth was not measured in money or possessions, but in the quality of human relationships and the capacity to nurture them. By the end of the second part of this journey, the mansion no longer felt like a place of emptiness. It was alive with small victories, quiet laughter, and moments of connection that filled the rooms with warmth. The father had begun to understand that true parenting required more than presence in body. It required presence in heart and mind, and with the maid's guidance, he was finally starting to grasp what it meant to truly see, hear, and love his son in the ways that mattered most. The mansion was unusually quiet that morning, yet the stillness felt different from before. It was not the empty silence of neglect, but a calm that carried warmth, subtle but present. The boy had already begun his morning routine, moving carefully across the floor, checking the placement of his toys and lining up his blocks. The maid had anticipated his needs, quietly setting up the space in a way that made him comfortable. Her touch was careful and considered, creating an environment where he could thrive without feeling pressured. The father watched from the doorway, a feeling of anticipation building within him. He had spent weeks observing, learning, and quietly participating. But today he sensed that something deeper might unfold. The maid moved closer to the boy, her hands guiding gently when necessary, her voice soft and soothing. She didn't command, she didn't instruct. She simply offered a presence that was steady, reliable, and comforting. The boy responded naturally, engaging with her guidance with a trust that had been hard-earned. Today, however, there was a noticeable shift. The boy's responses were more open, his movements less cautious, his eyes brighter. He began stacking blocks higher than usual, experimenting with shapes and angles. The maid encouraged him with subtle praise, clapping softly and smiling in a way that radiated warmth without overwhelming him. The father's heart stirred in a way that surprised him. He felt pride not for his own actions, but for the small triumphs of his son, witnessed in the gentle guidance of the maid. He realized that connection was not something he could demand or create through effort alone. It was cultivated through presence, patience, and understanding. As the day progressed, the father began to take a more active role. He tried to mirror the maid's actions, observing her carefully and attempting to replicate her calm, attentive approach. He joined his son at the table, working quietly alongside him, celebrating each small success with a soft word or a gentle touch. At first, his movements were hesitant, unsure if he was doing the right thing. But the boy responded, even if subtly, a nod, a smile, a glance that conveyed understanding. It was enough to encourage him to continue. The maid remained a guiding presence, never intrusive, always patient. She offered suggestions through quiet gestures, showing the father when to step back and when to offer support. She had a way of reading the boy's cues with an almost instinctive precision, knowing when he needed encouragement and when he needed space. The father learned by watching, gradually understanding the rhythm of engagement, the delicate balance between support and independence. He began to feel a sense of humility, realizing how much he had overlooked in his previous approach to parenting. During the afternoon, the boy became restless. He shifted in his chair, fidgeting and letting out small sounds of frustration. The maid immediately moved closer, her presence grounding him. She spoke softly, using short phrases and gentle tones, guiding him back to focus. The father observed carefully, learning when to intervene and when to step aside. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder, feeling the tension slowly release under his touch. The boy leaned slightly into him, a small gesture that carried enormous meaning. It was the first time he had truly felt the connection, the first sign that his presence mattered in the same way the maids had. They moved to the living room, where the boy enjoyed arranging his toys in patterns that made sense to him. The father joined him, sitting on the floor and observing his creations. The maid stayed nearby, providing reassurance and guidance without overshadowing the father's involvement. The boy looked up at his father, his eyes bright with curiosity, and handed him a piece of his puzzle. The father accepted it, following the boy's lead, and together they worked to complete the pattern. The simple act of collaboration, of sharing a task without judgment or hurry, created a bridge that had not existed before. Later, the boy became anxious when a sudden noise echoed through the mansion. He froze, clutching his favorite blanket, uncertainty flickering across his face. The maid was immediately at his side, her hand on his back, speaking softly and calmly. The father watched and learned. He moved closer, kneeling beside them, and spoke in low, gentle tones, allowing his presence to reassure without overwhelming. The boy responded, slowly relaxing as the sound faded, trusting the combined comfort of the two adults around him. The father felt a profound shift within himself. He understood that love was not just about providing or protecting. It was about being fully present in moments of vulnerability, offering support and understanding when it mattered most. As evening approached, the father reflected on the day. He had participated actively, learned to observe with empathy, and experienced the subtle power of patience and attention. The maid had guided him, silently teaching him lessons that no book or lecture could convey. Her role had been instrumental, not only in nurturing his son but in awakening his own capacity for connection and understanding. He felt gratitude, respect, and a renewed commitment to being present, to truly engaging with his child. Dinner was quiet but filled with small moments of connection. The boy ate steadily, the father engaged with him, and the maid offered gentle guidance when necessary. It was not a perfect evening, nor did it need to be. The significance lay in the presence, in the shared experiences, in the building of trust and understanding. The father realized that the small gestures, the guiding hand, the soft word, the shared laughter, were the true markers of love and care. After dinner, they moved to a more relaxed space. The boy was playing with a new set of blocks, experimenting with structures and shapes. The father joined in, and together they built towers and patterns, celebrating each small success. The maid observed, offering quiet encouragement, letting the father take the lead while providing support when necessary. The boy looked between the two of them, his trust expanding, his comfort growing. The father felt a surge of emotion, understanding that these were the moments that truly mattered, the ones that built lasting bonds. Later that night, as the boy slept, the father sat in the study, reflecting on the transformation of the day. He had witnessed moments of vulnerability, triumph, and connection, all guided by the quiet wisdom of the maid. He understood that her presence had been a catalyst, opening his eyes to a new way of being, a deeper understanding of his son's world. He felt humbled, aware of the distance he had once maintained, and grateful for the opportunity to learn, grow, and engage. The mansion, once grand but distant, felt different now. It was alive with subtle warmth, a quiet energy born from connection, understanding, and empathy. The father realized that wealth and luxury could not create this environment. It was built through patience, presence, and human connection. He felt a commitment to continue this journey, to be a consistent, attentive presence in his son's life, guided by the lessons he had observed and the quiet example of the maid. In the days that followed, he continued to engage, slowly building a rhythm of presence, attentiveness, and empathy. He noticed small victories, the boy's smile, the laughter, the moments of shared understanding. He began to appreciate the maid not only as a caregiver but as a guide, someone who had opened a door to a world he had only glimpsed before. She had taught him the language of patience, trust, and emotional connection, lessons that could not be rushed or forced, but had to be nurtured with care. By the end of this period, the father had begun to change. He approached each day with more awareness, more patience, and a growing understanding of what his son needed. The boy's trust in him deepened, and their interactions became richer, filled with moments of genuine connection. The mansion no longer felt like a place of isolation. It had begun to feel like a home, a space where love, understanding, and empathy were at the center, and the father realized that the journey of connection was ongoing, one that required constant attention, patience, and an open heart. He felt ready to continue this journey, guided by the lessons he had learned and the quiet, unwavering presence of the maid who had helped him see what truly mattered. The morning began quietly, the soft sunlight spilling into the mansion, reflecting off the polished floors and the walls adorned with priceless artwork. The boy was already awake, moving carefully through his routine, checking the placement of his toys and lining up items just as he liked them. The maid was beside him, moving with ease and attentiveness, her calm presence offering comfort. She had a way of knowing when to guide and when to step back, creating an environment where he felt safe and understood. The father watched from a distance, a mix of anticipation and nervousness coursing through him. Today he had decided to try more actively, to engage in ways he had been learning over the past weeks. The boy seemed particularly energetic that morning. He arranged his toys with more enthusiasm, testing new patterns and designs. The maid knelt beside him, her voice soft and encouraging, and the father joined them, trying to mirror her approach. At first his attempts were awkward, unsure of the right words or gestures, but the boy responded even subtly. A glance, a small smile, a tentative nod. The father felt a warm surge of pride, not for himself, but for the moments of connection that were slowly taking shape. He began to understand that engagement was not about control or instruction. It was about presence and empathy. As the morning passed, the father found himself drawn into the boy's world. They played together with building blocks, creating towers and patterns, celebrating each small success with laughter and soft words. The maid remained nearby, guiding without interfering, allowing the father to learn through observation and experience. The boy's responses grew more open and joyful, his trust in his father deepening. The father realized that the lessons he had been learning from the maid were taking root. He was beginning to connect with his son in ways he had never imagined possible. At lunchtime, the boy became restless, pushing away his food and letting out small sounds of frustration. The maid moved immediately, her hand gentle on his shoulder, her voice calm and steady. The father observed carefully, then stepped in, placing his own hand lightly on the boy's back, echoing the maid's reassuring presence. The boy relaxed slightly, leaning into the combined comfort of both adults. The father felt a profound awareness of how important it was to be present, not just physically but emotionally, offering support without forcing control. He realized that these small acts of care were the foundation of trust and love. In the afternoon, the father suggested a walk around the mansion's gardens. The boy hesitated, uncertain, but the maid offered a gentle invitation, smiling and encouraging him. The father took his hand, guiding him slowly through the paths, noticing the boy's reactions to the sounds, smells, and textures around them. The boy pointed to flowers, stones, and trees, sharing his observations with soft sounds and gestures. The father responded, following his lead, asking gentle questions, celebrating each interaction. The maid stayed close, observing, providing support when necessary, but allowing the father to take a more active role. It was a subtle shift, but significant. The father was beginning to bridge the gap, stepping into his son's world with understanding and empathy. The boy became more expressive as they walked, pointing at butterflies and birds, reaching out to touch leaves and flowers. The father encouraged exploration, celebrating curiosity, and the boy's face lit up with joy. The maid watched, a quiet smile on her face, knowing that this was exactly the kind of experience that nurtured trust and connection. The father realized that being present, noticing the small details and responding with warmth was far more important than any grand gesture or material offering. He felt a quiet gratitude for the maid, recognizing that her guidance had been instrumental in this transformation. Returning to the mansion, the boy was eager to share his discoveries. He led the father and maid to different rooms, pointing out objects and recounting his observations through gestures and sounds. The father followed, responding with encouragement, gently guiding when necessary, and learning the nuances of communication that mattered most to his son. The maid remained a steady presence, offering subtle cues and quiet support. The father felt a deep sense of connection growing, a bridge being built on trust, patience, and shared understanding. As the evening approached, the boy grew tired and irritable. He began to fuss, expressing frustration through movements and sounds. The maid immediately stepped in, her calm presence helping him regulate his emotions. The father observed carefully, then joined in, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, speaking softly and allowing space for him to calm down. The boy gradually relaxed, leaning into the support offered by both adults. The father felt a profound realization. Parenting was not about control or perfection. It was about presence, empathy, and responding to needs with patience and love. Dinner was quiet, yet filled with subtle moments of connection. The boy ate steadily, engaging occasionally with his father, sharing glances and small gestures of understanding. The father participated actively, celebrating each small success, and the maid continued her guiding role, offering support when necessary, but allowing the father to take the lead. It was not a perfect evening, nor did it need to be. The significance lay in presence, shared moments, and the building of trust. The father realized that these small gestures, gentle guidance, shared laughter, and quiet encouragement, were the true markers of love and connection. Later, the father suggested reading a story together. The boy eagerly joined, and the father read slowly, observing reactions, adjusting his tone, and celebrating engagement. The maid sat nearby, providing reassurance when needed, encouraging the boy to participate in small ways. The father felt a deep sense of accomplishment, understanding that the journey of connection was ongoing, built through consistent, patient engagement. He realized that love was not always loud or demonstrative. Sometimes it was quiet, gentle, and persistent, the kind that built trust and security over time. After the story, the boy began to yawn, signaling his readiness for bed. The maid guided him gently through his nighttime routine, and the father followed, participating actively, brushing teeth, helping with pajamas, and offering quiet words of comfort. The boy responded positively, his trust and comfort growing with each interaction. The father felt a deep sense of fulfillment, understanding that these simple, consistent acts of care were far more important than any material comfort or luxury the mansion could offer. As the boy drifted into sleep, the father sat quietly in the study, reflecting on the day. He thought about the progress, the small victories, and the moments of genuine connection. He understood that the maid had been instrumental, guiding him silently, teaching him the importance of patience, empathy, and presence. He felt gratitude, respect, and a renewed commitment to continue engaging with his son, to be a consistent presence, and to nurture the trust that had begun to grow. The mansion, once grand but distant, now felt alive with warmth and understanding. It was no longer just a place of wealth. It was becoming a home where love, patience, and empathy were at the center. The father realized that wealth and luxury could not create these connections. They were built through consistent presence, observation, and care. He felt ready to continue this journey, knowing that the lessons learned from the maid were invaluable and that the path of connection, though challenging, was profoundly rewarding. In the following days, the father continued to participate actively in his son's life, gradually building routines, celebrating small victories, and learning to communicate effectively. He noticed the boy's growth, his increasing confidence, and the deepening bond between them. The maid remained a steady, guiding presence, helping both father and son navigate this journey with patience and understanding. The father felt a profound sense of gratitude, recognizing that these relationships founded on empathy, patience, and presence were the true treasures of life, far more valuable than any material wealth the mansion contained. The morning light spilled softly into the mansion, creating long shadows across the polished floors. The boy was already awake, moving through his familiar routine, arranging his toys and lining up objects just as he liked them. The maid was nearby, offering quiet guidance and gentle encouragement, her presence a steady anchor for the day. The father watched from the doorway, feeling a mix of anticipation and a sense of calm he had never experienced before. Today felt different. It was a day to embrace fully, to participate completely, and to deepen the bond he had been building with his son. The boy seemed more confident than usual, experimenting with new arrangements and patterns in his play. The father joined him, kneeling beside him on the floor, trying to mirror the calm attentiveness of the maid. He spoke softly, offered encouragement, and celebrated each small success. The boy responded with laughter and subtle gestures of approval, his trust in his father growing steadily. The maid observed, offering guidance when necessary but allowing the father to take an active role. The father felt a surge of emotion, realizing that the connection he had longed for was finally taking shape. As the morning progressed, the boy became slightly restless, his energy shifting in ways that could lead to frustration. The maid immediately noticed, her calm presence helping him regulate. The father followed her lead, placing a hand gently on his son's back and speaking in a quiet, soothing voice. Slowly, the boy's tension eased, his breathing returned to normal, and he smiled up at his father. It was a small victory, but it carried a profound meaning. The father realized that true parenting required presence, patience, and empathy, and that these simple gestures were far more powerful than any material provision. Later, the father suggested a game of building towers with blocks. The boy's eyes lit up, eager to participate. Together, they constructed tall towers, celebrating each success and carefully managing the collapses that inevitably happened. The maid guided from the side, offering encouragement and support, ensuring the boy felt safe and empowered. The father noticed the subtle lessons in these activities, the importance of patience, the value of encouragement, and the joy found in shared experiences. He felt a growing sense of humility, realizing how much he had missed in the past by being distant and preoccupied. During lunch, the boy was hesitant to eat, distracted by his surroundings and the new patterns he was creating with his toys. The maid knelt beside him, offering gentle reassurance, her voice soft and encouraging. The father followed suit, speaking calmly, providing a sense of safety and support. The boy began to eat, his trust in both adults evident in his willingness to respond. The father felt a quiet pride, understanding that these small acts of care and attention were building the foundation of a strong and lasting bond. In the afternoon, the father suggested a walk in the gardens. The boy hesitated, uncertain, but the maid offered a gentle invitation, smiling and encouraging him. The father took his hand, guiding him along the winding paths, observing his reactions to the sights and sounds around them. The boy pointed out flowers, stones, and birds, communicating through gestures and soft sounds. The father responded with curiosity and praise, celebrating each moment of engagement. The maid remained nearby, offering guidance when needed but allowing the father to take the lead. The boy's confidence and comfort grew, and the father felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that these shared experiences were creating memories and trust that would last a lifetime. Returning inside, the boy shared his observations enthusiastically, pointing to objects and making small sounds of excitement. The father engaged actively, responding to each cue, celebrating his son's curiosity and accomplishments. The maid watched, smiling quietly, knowing that this was the kind of engagement that nurtured trust and understanding. The father felt a deep appreciation for her role in this journey, recognizing that her patience, insight, and guidance had been instrumental in helping him connect with his son. As evening approached, the boy grew tired and irritable, signaling the need for comfort and reassurance. The maid stepped in immediately, her calm presence soothing him, her voice soft and steady. The father followed her lead, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, speaking in quiet tones and allowing space for him to calm down. Slowly, the boy's tension eased, and he leaned into the support offered by both adults. The father felt a profound awareness of the power of presence and empathy, understanding that these simple acts were the heart of parenting and love. Dinner was quiet, but filled with subtle connections. The boy ate steadily, occasionally glancing at his father, sharing small gestures of understanding. The father responded, participating fully in the moment, celebrating each small success. The maid continued her supportive role, offering reassurance when necessary but allowing the father to lead. It was not a perfect evening, nor did it need to be. The true significance lay in the moments of connection, trust, and shared understanding. The father realized that these small, consistent acts of care were more valuable than any display of wealth or luxury. Later, the father suggested reading a story. The boy eagerly joined, and together they explored the tale, observing his reactions and adjusting their tone and pace accordingly. The maid sat nearby, providing subtle guidance and reassurance, encouraging engagement without intrusion. The father felt a sense of fulfillment, Recognizing that these moments were shaping a strong and lasting bond, he understood that love was not always loud or demonstrative. Sometimes it was quiet, gentle, and persistent, building trust and security over time. As bedtime approached, the boy's energy waned, and the maid guided him through his nighttime routine with care and patience. The father participated fully, brushing teeth, helping with pajamas, and offering comforting words. The boy responded positively, his trust and comfort growing with each interaction. The father felt a profound sense of accomplishment, realizing that these simple, consistent acts of care were the foundation of a loving and supportive relationship. Once the boy was asleep, the father sat quietly, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. He thought about the lessons learned from the maid, the importance of patience, empathy, and presence, and the subtle ways in which love could be expressed and nurtured. He felt deep gratitude for her guidance and for the opportunity to truly engage with his son. He recognized that this journey was ongoing, requiring continued attention, care, and emotional presence. The mansion, once a grand but distant place, now felt alive with warmth, trust, and connection. It was no longer just a home of material wealth, but a home of human presence, empathy, and love. The father understood that true wealth was measured not by possessions, but by the quality of relationships and the depth of care and attention offered to those we love. He felt a quiet determination to continue nurturing this bond, to participate fully in his son's life, and to honor the lessons he had learned from the maid. In the following days, the father continued to engage actively, participating in routines, celebrating small victories, and learning to communicate effectively. The boy's confidence and trust grew, and the father's presence became a consistent source of comfort and support. The maid remained a guiding presence, helping both father and son navigate this journey with patience, understanding, and subtle encouragement. The father felt profound gratitude, recognizing that the true treasures of life were not material possessions, but the human connections built through empathy, patience, and presence. By the end of this part of their journey, the mansion was alive with warmth, laughter, and small victories. The father and son had developed a deep, trusting bond, nurtured by patience, presence, and empathy. The maid had played an essential role in this transformation, her quiet guidance and unwavering support creating a foundation for connection and understanding. The father felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the lessons learned and the bonds formed would continue to grow and strengthen over time. He reflected on the journey with humility and gratitude, understanding that love required patience, presence, and a willingness to meet someone where they were. The boy's trust, confidence, and joy were a testament to the power of empathy and consistent care. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and distance, had become a home filled with warmth, connection, and love. And the father knew that this was only the beginning of a lifelong journey, one that would continue to grow, guided by the lessons he had learned and the deep bond he now shared with his son.